Well, hey there, Kingdom Builders. Welcome back to Daily Kingdom Growth. I'm your host, Mitchell Beecher. Did you know that God's promises never fail, even when generations pass? Well, today we're diving into the conclusion of Genesis and the start of Exodus. We'll see Jacob's final blessings, Joseph's powerful forgiveness, and how God begins raising a deliverer for his people. And if you think this story has nothing to do with Jesus, think again. Buckle up, because we are going on an incredible journey. But first, let's recap a little bit from the previous episode. We saw Jacob's family move from Egypt as part of God's covenant plan. Jacob's blessing of Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, reminded us that God's promises extend beyond one's family to all nations. And now we are diving into how those promises continue through Jacob's prophetic words and beyond. So let's get started. Genesis 49 is a big moment. Jacob gathers his 12 sons and delivers a blessing that's more than just words. It's prophecy. These blessings reflect each son's character and their role in God's unfolding plan. Let's focus on a standout prophecy in verse 10. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he to whom it belongs shall come to the obedience of the nations shall be his. Judah's blessing isn't just about his tribe. This points directly to Jesus, the Lion of Judah, who will come as the ultimate king. Isn't it incredible just how God's promises, it expands centuries, generations after generation. But that's not all about Judah. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and the others receive blessing, or actually some of them receive warnings that reflect their actions. For example, Joseph's blessing is a double portion, showing God's favor. Through all these words, we see God's sovereignty weaving through each tribe's future. Now, Genesis 50, the last chapter of Genesis, brings us to one of the most powerful moments in forgiveness in the Bible. Jacob is buried in Canaan, fulfilling his wish. Then Joseph's brothers, still feeling very guilty, fear retaliation. But Joseph's response in verse 20 is profound. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. This verse captures the heart of God's providence. No matter the trials or evil that we face, God's plans are greater. Joseph's story reminds us of Jesus, who turned humanity's greatest evil, the cross, into the salvation for all. Joseph's faith doesn't waver even in death. He makes the Israelites promise to carry his bones to the promised land, trusting God's covenant. What a legacy of faith. And this concludes Genesis. Congratulations, we finish the first book out of the 66. Well done, good and faithful servant. So let's move on to the second book of the Pentateuch, or the Torah, Exodus. 430 years have passed between the end of Genesis and the beginning of Exodus. A new Pharaoh arises who obviously doesn't know Joseph. The Israelites, blessed by God, multiply, and this growth leads to oppression. Verse 12 tells us, but the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites. And here's the lesson. God's blessing can't be stopped, even by persecution. Pharaoh's fear leads to harsh slavery and even the killing of babies. But God's plan is unstoppable. Exodus 2 introduces Moses. Born into that time of danger, his mother hides him in a basket and places him in the Nile River. Pharaoh's own daughter rescues him. Verse 10 says, when the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, I drew him out of the water. Moses grows up, and one day he is out and about walking around. He sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. Moses looks around, no one is watching, and he kills the Egyptian. The next day, he sees two Hebrew men fighting. He asked, what's going on? What's wrong? And they responded, who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me like you did the Egyptian? Pharaoh heard about this, and he tries to get Moses killed. Moses, out of fear, flees Egypt and goes off, and he lives his own life in Medina. So one day, he sees a group of 7 daughters of a priest. They get drove away from the well as they are getting water to fill the troughs for their sheep. Moses ends up filling the troughs with the water, and their father, Reuel, gave his daughter Zipporah to be his wife. They have a child named Gershom, which sounds like the Hebrew word for a foreigner here. Moses' story foreshadows Jesus as the ultimate deliverer. Just as Moses is saved to deliver Israel, Jesus is sent to save us from sin. Isn't it just amazing how God orchestrates history? And as we reflect, consider this: God's promises never fail. Are you trusting him even when it feels uncertain? And like Joseph, are you willing to forgive, knowing God works through all things for good? And here's my challenge for you. Take some time today and meditate on Genesis 50, verse 20, and Exodus 2, verse 10. Reflect on how God's providence is at work in your life. And share this in the comments below. And we love to see how his promises are unfolding in your life. Hey, today's episode encouraged you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Head over to our website for free Bible study guides for you to go deeper. And stay tuned for the next episode where we will explore how God calls Moses to lead his people. I'll see you next time.